welcome back. Episode 59. Hopefully you heard some intro music before that, but unfortunately I can't push the button when I'm editing through iMovie because I'm not that skilled at iMovie, so I don't know how to do that. This is the first episode that we're posting to YouTube with actually like having what we look like. So if you've been listening for a long time and you didn't know what we looked like already, here we are. That's Dom down there at the end, Brandon in the middle, Jason over here. Aaron's not with us this weekend because he is out of town doing something hopefully not football related. So we were supposed to do hot takes and hot cakes today, but as you can see, no hot cakes. So it's just us sitting here talking football like the old days.
Just like the old days. Yeah, it'll be fun, though, because we're recording right now at 9 p.m., and we just got back from swimming, which is why I'm wearing what I'm wearing, and I didn't even realize you had changed into a jersey, so you actually look like you should be recording, and I looked like I just, kind of fell upon this room.
I mean, yeah, but I'm also wearing, the gray basketball shorts that say the Bulls on one side and the Warriors on the other side, so it just depends on whether or not they
You have one short pair of shorts that has two basketball teams on them?
Yeah. Has
Why?
the Bulls logo, Warriors name.
How's that a thing?
I don't know. I got it at Burlington Coat Factory a couple years ago.
Burlington Coat Factory.
So I don't know if they can see that or not, but they're on.
Okay.
My clothes were just wet from playing football, so I just figured I'd change because I was uncomfortable.
Fair enough.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and hop into some news. We haven't talked news in probably a solid couple of months.
It's been a while.
We've really just ignored most of it because we were far enough away from the season that all significant news was really insignificant news, and it was just a waste of time to talk about. But we're close enough to the season now that we feel comfortable starting to dive back into some of that stuff now that training camps and stuff are coming up. So first one, DeAndre Hopkins was a while ago cut by the Cardinals. Recently, I think within the last couple of days, the Titans have become the heavy betting favorites to land DeAndre Hopkins. They were plus 500 on the Vegas sportsbook lines to land him, and now a couple of days ago it went down to minus 300, and now I think it's sitting somewhere at minus 175 because he commented on Chris Jones' Instagram post or something stupid, so they lowered it. But the point is, it went from unlikely to very, very likely odds that he's going to the Titans, so it's looking like that's the team that he's going to end up on.
Did you hear of maybe why did the Pats back out, or are the Titans now just the heavy favorites?
I'm not sure. I looked into it a little bit this morning, and I couldn't find anything to show that the Patriots fell out of it, but I also couldn't find anything about Dalvin Cook, who we're going to talk about in a minute. And the last that I heard, the Patriots were very much in on both of those players, and were it was a realistic possibility that they landed both. And now I'm not sure what's going on, because now it doesn't look like they're going to land either of them.
What are your thoughts fantasy wise if Dalvin Cook signs with the Pats? Because that hurts Ramondre, doesn't it?
Well, we'll talk about him in a minute, because I do have some thoughts about him in general.
Okay.
But Hopkins first. How does DeAndre Hopkins going to the Titans affect him fantasy-wise and Treylon Burks, Derrick Henry, that offense as a whole?
Yeah, I don't know, because right now I'm pretty sure it's uncertain who's going to be quarterback for them, right?
Yeah, it is.
Or as far as we know, it'll be Ryan Tannehill, who seemed to be really good on a playoff level offense a couple years ago, and then last year, I think they've been battling with a lot of injuries too. Since the beginning of last year.
Yeah, pretty much every position.
Especially at O-line. And now with A.J. Brown gone, they kind of can't spread it out as much as they did before. They lost Jonnu Smith, who was pretty good at tight end the last year that he was with the Titans too. So now it's not looking great. They have Treylon Burks, who supposedly has looked really good at training camp.
Yeah, I think if Hopkins were to land on the Titans, it hurts Treylon Burks for sure. I think it's an overall upgrade for the offense, and Hopkins will be fine no matter where he goes. I don't know exactly where his ADP has him going right now. It's the 5th or 6th round, I think. And I think once there's some certainty about what team and position he's in, no matter where it is, he'll go up from there, I think. But I don't think that he'll go back to being a bona fide top 12 wide receiver like he has been
No,
in the
but
past.
I have enough faith in Mike Vrabel too, where like he's gonna produce, and aside from Derrick Henry, he's gonna be the only other guy on the offense. So he's gonna produce and put up points no matter what. I don't see the ceiling being as high as like when Devontae went to the Raiders per se, but it'll be consistent. Like he'll be worth a pick, worthy of like a wide receiver 2 at least.
Mm-hmm. Dom, what do you think?
Well, his value would obviously be better than a free agent, as he is right now. But if he went to the Titans, I think I'm definitely not picking him up at all, considering that Derrick Henry's there, and I don't like Ryan Tannehill. I think the Titans as a team will look good in the NFL, but I don't like it at all fantasy-wise for DeAndre Hopkins.
Really? So you're saying you're just like passing over him?
Yeah.
I think, like, if he were to go to the Titans and they run the offense the same as they did last year, I think he'd still slot in at like 6 or 7 targets a game, which doesn't seem like a lot for a number 1 wide receiver, but he's efficient enough with his targets that could still turn into 5 to 6 catches for like 80 yards and borderline averaging a touchdown a game at times, which is still like very solid and borderline elite production for fantasy. And so I think that he's a fine play as like a low end wide receiver 1 in some leagues, maybe a high end wide receiver 2. But again, that's like depending on how they run their offense, who's at quarterback, who else they end up getting on the offense before the season starts, and if he even goes to that team. So I guess we'll have to just wait and see what happens.
If anything, I actually would, if Hopkins does sign with the Titans, I would gain a lot more confidence for Derrick Henry. Because with a clear cut like wide receiver 1 where they could have some kind of efficient passing game or somebody that they could rely on to catch the ball downfield or anywhere on the field. Hopkins, I think today still has one of the best hands in the league. Mm-hmm. They would be able to kind of spread it out or keep defenses honest enough, at least with play action, because that's what they did with A.J. Brown, where it's not just going to be like an 8-man box, just kind of stuff the run, like just all eyes on Derrick Henry all the time.
Right. All right, we got to go ahead and move on. Otherwise, this episode's going to be 2 hours long. Dalvin Cook is actually the next player on our list for news. He got an offer from, I think, multiple teams, but the Dolphins is the one that's been like released that they've for sure offered him a deal, and he declined that deal because it wasn't financially what he was looking for, which is fair. He is rumored to be planning to wait until after July 17th, which is on Monday, 2 days after we're recording, probably 1 day after this is live. That's the deadline for franchise tag extensions to be made, so that way he has more leverage for a contract. Like if Josh Jacobs or Saquon were to not be able to come to a long-term deal and threaten a holdout, he has more leverage with those teams to potentially get a contract where they would then have a little bit more security at the running back position. But as far as like what team he's going to, there's really like there's no real front runner for who's going to land him. It's just that like he's going to go to the team that fits him the best, that's going to give him the contract that he likes. And no matter where he goes, he's probably going to be pretty solid, and will slot in at a borderline starting spot on most teams.
I wouldn't want him going to the Patriots just because knowing the Patriots already as it is, I have a hard time ranking Ramondre Stevenson as a clear-cut RB1 just because of their history of splitting no matter what they have at talent, whether they have one guy that is a better rusher than all the rest or a better pass catcher than all the rest. They use all of them fairly evenly. But everyone seems to be confident in Ramondre being far and away the best talent of the rest of the running backs in that room, that he is going to be taking most of the work. So if Dalvin Cook were to go there and they'd end up basically splitting, I wouldn't see Dalvin Cook as being a clear-cut backup. It would definitely be like a 1A, 1B type of situation. So I wouldn't love either of them. I don't know. Obviously, as of right now, what we're hearing is that it's still a possibility he's going to go to the Pats. I also heard there's a possibility he goes to the Jets, which would hurt Breece Hall. But
Yeah, it would
basically
be
the same
heartbroken.
thing. That would suck for you. But before that, like a couple months ago, the favorite was the Dolphins. And
Yeah, it's his hometown team.
as far as I know, he didn't like what he was offered. So
Yeah.
it was just kind of off the table after that.
I do think that he'll probably end up in that division for sure. Like, the Bills make sense because he's going to be playing with his brother. That's a contender.
I was going to say, watch him play with his brother in Buffalo.
Yep,
That'd be pretty cool.
Dolphins is his hometown team. And then the Jets are looking to build a Super Bowl contender super team over there with Aaron Rodgers, and the Patriots can always use help at running back. So, like, any one of them makes sense. They're all rumored. They're all in the running. So if I had to place a bet on which division he'd end up in, it would probably be in that one. Were you going to say something?
Oh, okay. I just think I don't know what to think about the whole thing until he lands at an actual spot.
Do you think there's a possibility he goes somewhere else, or do you think he's... Because, like, I don't understand why you would be looking at a certain division. Like, I want to be in this
I don't think he's
division. Like,
looking at that division. I just think that the odds are the highest because all four of the teams in that division are looking at him.
Well, I think if he does end up going to the Pats, I think I wouldn't like that because him and Ramondre Stevenson would have to split. They have pretty much no pass game, so it would be all on the run. The Jets, for Dalvin Cook and the Jets, I think I would like it for the Jets, but fantasy-wise, I wouldn't like it because Breece Hall would majorly get screwed for all fantasy players, and Dalvin Cook would also have to split. I think the Bills would be good. I don't think he would split, but he would have to sacrifice his touches with the pass game that they have.
Yeah, and also
developed.
Goal line touches would be sacrificed for Josh Allen, but it just depends on whether or not he's looking for like a position where he can be the guy or if he's looking to win.
You know what would kind of make sense, but nobody's talking about it? Maybe it only makes sense in my head, but I'm just surprised that I haven't heard anything about it. Kansas City.
Yeah,
They have Isaiah
but they
Pacheco. But listen, Isaiah Pacheco was a 6th round pick, so they don't really have anything invested in him. And then their next best guy is 30 or 31-year-old Jerick McKinnon, who always plays well late, but he's only getting older. So, and if they couldn't land D-Hop, and they're going to keep that, mediocre wide receiver room, which with Mahomes and Andy Reid will be fine. They just won the Super Bowl with that, and Kelsey. Like, at least having Cook would be able to establish a really good run game, especially if they continue to spread things out, because Mahomes is a threat no matter what.
I don't see the Chiefs trying to go and picking up Dalvin Cook, only because I think they're focused on Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco looked really good.
He looked good.
And I think they could, if they wanted to, build and develop Isaiah Pacheco. And I think he can be a really good back in these next couple of years. I don't think they need to go out and get Dalvin Cook.
So we could, but the reason why I say that is there is a history of teams, like if they take a running back outside of like the 2nd round and they don't have to invest a lot in them, like they'll use them sparingly, but then they'll still kind of look for that guy to put over them. Like they would still be willing to trade for somebody with a better name, a better history, or just overall better talent and put that person over. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'll say I'm not sure. I don't know like everything about the salary cap for the NFL. There's definitely ways around it for sure. But according to Over the Cap, the Chiefs currently have $562,000 in cap space. So unless Dalvin Cook's trying to come for $562,000, that's why they won't sign him. With DeAndre Hopkins, he's willing to potentially take a pay cut because I think a lot of his money was guaranteed when he was cut from the Cardinals, and he just wants to play for a contender. Dalvin Cook, clearly by declining the Dolphins deal, is also looking to get paid at the same time, and I don't think that the Chiefs are able to do that. But who knows? Like I said, there's ways around that stuff, so we'll see. All right, speaking of taking pay cuts, Joe Mixon took a pay cut of over $4 million to stay in Cincinnati. They basically gave him an ultimatum and said, you're either going to get paid less money or we're going to cut you. So now he's making just under $6 million, but he has a potential to get up to $8 million with incentives. honestly, after hearing this news, like I'm as in on Joe Mixon as Brandon has said he's in on Joe Mixon in the last couple of episodes. Though really the only thing holding me back was the legal issues that seem to have been cleared up now, and the uncertainty of whether or not he's going to get a contract done and stay in Cincinnati. And now both of those things have gone away. There's nobody else in the backfield behind him right now. Maybe they signed Dalvin Cook or Ezekiel Elliott just to get some an extra body in the backfield, but if they don't, it's Joe Mixon's team, and when he's on the field as the only guy, he is very, very, very good. If the offense is as good as it has been in the past, he's going to score touchdowns. He's going to get all the receiving work for running backs. So it's going to be a great season for Joe Mixon this year.
Yeah, there's no reason to believe that he can't or doesn't have at least top 10 upside.
I will say, if you are drafting best ball, which I personally don't, I would be taking this opportunity now to be drafting Joe Mixon in as many leagues as you can, because over the next month and a half, he's going to go up from the end of the fourth into the fifth round, probably up into like the end of the third into the start of the fourth. So he's going to jump up a full round in value for sure. So it's important to take advantage of the value now while you can before he's going where he should be ranked rather than where he is right now.
Right.
Dom, anything to say about Joe Mixon?
Not really.
All right. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Personally, have drafted and had Joe Mixon before Brandon liked him. I've been a Joe Mixon fan.
Oh, I mean, we're all Joe Mixon fans, but Brandon's high on him this year because you're able to get him for so cheap.
I know. I'm high on him.
Okay. Moving on, Josh Jacobs is currently, and as I mentioned before, the deadline for the extension for franchise tag players is 2 days from now. It's tomorrow if you're watching this live when it's posted. But Josh Jacobs and the Raiders are currently not close on an extension. He is willing to hold out if a deal is not made before the 17th.
You mean the Raiders? I think you said
sorry.
Giants.
You're probably right. I'm leaking ahead a little bit. Yeah, so Josh Jacobs and the Raiders are not close on the deal. He's willing to hold out. I personally think he'll play the whole season. Even if he does hold out, it'll just be for training camp. But it's definitely something to monitor, especially considering you have to give up a high second round to mid second round pick to get him in most redraft leagues. And so it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that situation if they come to an agreement, if he even bothers to hold out at all. And if he does, for how much time he'll miss.
Yeah, I've been hearing more about Saquon's situation as of late. Jacobs, not so much. Thinking about it off the top of my head, I can see the leverage going either way, where the Raiders are like, this was a contract year for you. You're 25. You're in your prime right now. You pass this up, and you hold out like, the clock is ticking for you. And then I also see Josh Jacobs being like, the only guy you have after me is like, I think Zamir White, which was like a third or fourth round pick, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
And he had over 300 touches last season and was just as important and productive, if not more so, than Devontae Adams. So he's like, he can also be like, you need me.
Yeah, that's exactly
Jimmy
right.
G can't win shootouts. Mm-hmm. So.
Right. And yeah, as you mentioned, Saquon Barkley, it's the same deal. He's prepared to hold out if a deal's not made before July 17th as well. Exact same situation. The only difference is they're at least somewhat close on an extension, and they're working to get something done. Mm-hmm. He was offered $13 million per year, and he declined that offer. And I think it had somewhere close to like $19 million guaranteed or something like that over those 3 years, or maybe it was even more than that. But he wants somewhere closer to $16 million a year, so it'll just be depending on whether or not over the next 2 days, if they can come closer or meet somewhere in the middle, or if he gets his $16 million, or if he ends up settling for 13. But he's willing to hold out if he doesn't get the deal that he wants, and it'll be the same thing. I think he'll hold out for training camp, and then he'll play when the season starts.
Wow. Now Saquon, right?
Yeah.
Saquon, I believe, got offered 16, but wants 20 plus, right?
That's not what I saw earlier, unless that's news from today.
What did you see?
I saw he was offered 13 and wants 16.
Same as Josh Jacobs?
Josh Jacobs hasn't been offered anything.
Oh, so now you're talking about Saquon.
They're not even
now
close,
you're talking about Saquon. Okay, sorry. I thought you were still talking about Josh Jacobs. Okay, so it's only like a $3 million difference that Saquon's willing to hold out for?
per year, and it was $19.5 million guaranteed on the offer that he had before.
So what do you
but that wasn't enough.
Do you think Saquon actually holds out like into the season?
No, I think both of them will hold out, but they'll play week 1.
Okay.
I think that they saw Le'Veon Bell hold out for the whole season, and he got his contract, but then he sucked after that.
Yeah.
So,
he crashed hard. What do
like
you think?
if that's what they're trying to do is crash after they get their bag, then sure, go ahead. But like it's not the best decision for your football career to miss a season in your prime just because you want to get a contract that pays you well.
Right. What do you think?
Well, personally, I don't know much about salary cap and the money stuff, but what I do know is that I don't think Saquon will crash. He had a pretty big injury, came back, he's looking, as his old self, and I think he's unreal athletic. I don't think the age is catching up to him yet, so
you think you think there's still something there for him, and there's more leverage on his side, like he could hold out going into the season?
Yeah, him and Josh Jacobs.
I don't know as much about Josh Jacobs.
I still think he can.
But Josh Jacobs has definitely been more available than Saquon. So it also kind of evens out because Saquon is the bigger talent, but he's a year older and has a longer injury history.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
All right, I think that is it for news. That was a long news segment, but we did get through it. We had a lot to talk about over the last couple of months that we've missed. So.
Well, we also didn't talk about Alvin Kamara.
Oh, yeah, and then Alvin Kamara.
So he has been officially charged with a misdemeanor and not a felony for the fight that he got in Las Vegas at that bar after the Pro Bowl. And he is going to serve, he's doing community service, and he has to pay the opposing party $100,000 for like medical bills. So, and I heard the footballers talking about this too, the fantasy footballers, that this is the first case that is going to be presented to the NFL or that the NFL is going to see like this, where it's not quite as severe as they thought it would be, but they're going to assess it, and it's looking like it'll be close to like a 1 or 2 game suspension. So it's not going to be.
I'm going to be honest. This news doesn't change my opinion on Alvin Kamara anyway. I was expecting a 4 to 6 game suspension. 1 to 2 games is significantly less, so I think that his 8th round ADP will definitely change, and he'll go up to like the 6th or 5th or 6th round probably. But he also was like not that good last year when he was on the field, and
I mean neither were the Saints though. Now with Derek Carr, I'm thinking like, would you rather have Alvin Kamara or like Cam Akers? Because I think I
would rather have Cam Akers. He's younger.
He's
younger. Got Sean McVay scheming for him. Like Alvin Kamara is old enough and has progressively declined over the last 2 seasons.
I asked that because Cam Akers seems to be kind of that last, in my head, the last guy in that tier of low end like RB2s.
I see Alvin Kamara as a flex even if he is only suspended for 1 or 2 games.
I don't know. I feel like the talent is still there. It might be like more so the situation he was in, and now that Derek Carr is there with Chris Olave, I think there could be a good connection there. Jamal Williams could take some load off of him where he could be more efficient and at least more consistent, may not have the upside he used to. But I've always been a big fan of Alvin Kamara. So while he may be going down a little bit, I still think he's got some I think he's still got some juice.
Yeah, I think he has some juice for sure. I don't see him as a top 24 running back, regardless if he plays the whole season.
Wow. Okay. I'd have to disagree.
Last year, Alvin Kamara did not look as nearly as good as I would liked him to be. His situation, I think, got better. Obviously, the Saints weren't good. He wasn't really in a good spot. I think he has the talent enough to be RB2, but I'm not looking to get him. I don't think he's really that big of a steal.
He's right on that line. Like, he's 27 years old, so he's right at that point where statistically running backs start to fall near the end of their career.
And he's already declined the last 3 seasons. So, like, he's at that age, and we've already seen the decline before this. There's no reason to me that shows that he should be valued the same as he has been in the past.
Okay.
All right. Now we will move on to our first segment of the show, outside of news. We're going to play Smash or Pass because I am unsure of what the YouTube guidelines are for profanity. I will hold off on making the joke that we usually make when we play Smash or Pass regarding Dom's favorite name for it.
He's not. Just don't worry about it.
That's all right.
What?
He's not thinking of it.
All right, so I have 4 different scenarios here. I think they're all based out of the first 3 rounds. Honestly, like the first half of the 3rd round is like where the picks are mainly based. And actually looking at it, half of them have you drafting Jamar Chase at the 103. So first one, in the 2nd round, you already have Jamar Chase at the 103, and T. Higgins is the best wide receiver left on the board. The best running backs available are Tony Pollard, Breece Hall, and Ramondre Stevenson. Do you smash or pass on T. Higgins and create the mega stack in Cincinnati with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase?
I don't like that.
Yeah, I pass.
You'd rather take Breece Hall, Tony Pollard, or Ramondre there?
Yeah, because you're capping your upside, and at that point, you can have potentially a top 10 running back to balance out your team.
That's what I figured that the first answer would be, so then I have a follow-up here. I agree. I would probably draft Breece Hall or Ramondre in that spot. You're in the 3rd round. You still have Jamar Chase at the 103, but you chose to draft Breece Hall or Ramondre or Tony Pollard at that spot in the 2nd round. Now you're sitting at the 303, and the best running backs available now are Najee Harris, Travis Etienne, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Do you now smash or pass on T. Higgins, who is still the best wide receiver on the board? Or do you take Najee, Etienne, or Jahmyr Gibbs?
I take my 2nd running back. For sure. Because, again, you're capping on that upside with one of your best players on the team. I understand the mega stack, but rarely is that going to pay off. Like, the last time I can think of that paying off, like realistically, was when Mahomes had Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. I can't think of any other situation in the last few years.
The last 2 years with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, they've both been top 15 wide receivers.
Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown.
Last year, they both paid off. Like, it happens. Like, high-powered offenses produce high-powered.
It does, but I think rarely they both pop off in the same weeks.
Okay, but to go along with that, if Jamar Chase doesn't pop off, it's because T. Higgins popped off. And Jamar Chase not popping off doesn't mean he's scoring 0 points. It means he has 10. And if you can get 10 points from one wide receiver and 30 points from the other wide receiver on any given week back and forth, that's still 20 points average from your wide receivers, and you'll take that any day of the week.
Well, I'd rather get 15 to 20 points from both of my running backs, and then...
I don't think you're getting 15 to 20 points a game out of Najee Etienne or Jahmyr Gibbs.
I think you can.
That's like elite RB1 numbers.
But there's also the chance that they go off for more than 20 points, whereas if you have Chase and Higgins, one has 30, the other has 10, it can balance out, but you can also see T. Higgins having 5 and then Jamar Chase going off for like that 30. Like, I guess it can balance out in the end, but you're never going to have a week where both of them are going to score 25 plus points. Almost never. I won't say never ever.
Not really. If one gets yards, the other gets touchdowns. I mean,
they could both get yards.
It happens. It's not impossible for it to happen.
Maybe we have to look into it more. But just like,
I wish I
thinking of it off the top of my head. Like, obviously, I'd love to stack because I've never done it before, or I've never had the opportunity.
Yeah, but
the mega stack just seems.
Imagine the opportunity to take Joe Burrow in the 4th round, though. And
I would
Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and T. Higgins.
Because here's the thing: if they
then Joe Mixon in the 5th round.
No, because
I definitely wouldn't do that. I wouldn't go that far.
Like watch grabbing Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and then you have that 1 week where Joe Mixon has like that ungodly 50-point game.
Then that's fine. You take the L on 1 week. If you finish 13-1 going into the playoffs, that's still
because their bye week. you're going to take the L that week.
Great. All right. When you're 12-2 going into the playoffs, I still think that's a 1 seed and you'd be fine.
I don't know, because the thing for me is if they play like a top 3 defense and they shut them down, no
one does anything.
Yeah, that's what I'm like thinking of. I would have to look at their like schedule beforehand. I'd have to.
I would take the running back, but not because I'm worried about capping upside, because I think that both of them will be fine and they're great wide receivers. It's just because running back's the position that I personally prefer anyway. And the running backs that are available on the turn of the 4th and the 5th
are not going to be anywhere near right.
It's going
to be you're dropping a tier. Whereas you pass up a T. Higgins, who's arguably top 12. You already have Chase, but you take 2 top 24 running backs, and then in the next round, you still have a chance of getting a top 24 wide receiver.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Next one. You're sitting again at the 303.
Okay.
Top 3 picks in the 3rd round. You've got 1 wide receiver and 1 running back through 2 rounds. Are you smashing or passing on one of the 3 stack of quarterbacks, Mahomes, Allen, and Hurts? Are you willing to take them at the beginning of the 3rd round if you've already got a Josh Jacobs and a Jamar Chase?
It's hard to say when I don't know who would be there. Like, can you tell us who the best players would be at running back?
It wouldn't be much. If all 3 of those quarterbacks made it out of the first 2 rounds, it would probably be the same players that we were just talking about. Najee, Etienne, Jahmyr Gibbs, and it might not even be them.
And then follow-up question, is it 6-point passing touchdowns or is this a default league?
I'd say answer for both. We'll say standard first, and then we'll say 6-point after. For me, it doesn't matter either way, because Allen and Hurts are still high enough value with their rushing upside that they should be considered here.
It doesn't make that much of a difference, but I feel better if it's a 6-point passing touchdown league, because I will smash on any of them. But then I guess if it's a standard default league, it doesn't matter because Mahomes is still by far the best quarterback in the league. But with the rushing upside and possible higher scoring out of Allen or Hurts, I would lean more towards them. But I think, either way, I think I smash on that.
What about you, Dom?
Because right now, like all 3 of those guys are going in the 2nd.
Yeah, Mahomes is currently ranked ADP-wise at like 14 for sleeper, which is stupid.
It's
and
ridiculous.
He shouldn't be drafted at the beginning of the 2nd round. But what would you do? Would you pick a quarterback, or would you grab another running back, wide receiver that might not be as valued upside-wise, but secures another starting position for you?
So I think it would all depend on who's there available, but not knowing, if you just say I have 1 wide receiver, 1 running back, I would take a QB.
Yeah, that's what I would do as well. Like, it would be, if you have the 303, that means that you either got Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase as your wide receiver. So I'm definitely okay passing on wide receiver there. And there's a chance that at that spot, like Josh Jacobs fell to you. You got Breece Hall. You got like one of those guys that still has the potential to finish as a top 5 running back. So while it would be nice to address my 2nd running back spot there, I think if there was the value of one of those 3 was there, I would have to take it. All right, last scenario. You're drafting at the 305. You drafted Austin Eckler at the 105, and you got Josh Jacobs in the 2nd round. Breece Hall, that's a really good start. Breece Hall's sitting there at your next pick. He fell to the 305. Do you punt wide receiver for another round and smash on the value of Breece Hall and just absolutely stack up at running back, or pass on the value to secure a wide receiver? The players left when I did it was Devontae Smith, DK, and Debo. So you're like passing on a borderline top 12 running back to get a play or a position of need there, and it's like a lesser valued wide receiver at that spot. It's really, really tough. Because then you got to think, even if you don't draft Breece Hall, or if you do draft Breece Hall here, then you're waiting 20 picks until you pick, or
right. And if you take Breece Hall, you're taking away the flexibility of your flex spot. You kind of have to start all 3 of those running backs. Whereas if you take that wide receiver, you have more of a balance on your team. And if you have a guy that ends up doing a lot better than expected, you can kind of put at your flex spot or switch out. So I don't know, because I've done this before, I believe, where I drafted a player that I pretty much had to put at my flex spot every week, because I think it was 3 wide receivers. And then I ended up having, I think, a running back who was doing just as well, but just because the name of that wide receiver like was better or more well known, like I felt like I wanted to play that wide receiver every week, but that running back was actually scoring about the same.
I mean, I don't think
it's really hard.
I don't
for
think
me
that's
to
a
say.
bad problem to have anyway, though, because if
No.
you have more options that you can start, then that's fine, and you can always make a trade, package those to get better on your top end talent and then less depth. But it's really, really hard. I personally think that I would just grab Breece Hall because starting 3 top 12 running backs and 2 of them being borderline top 5 is disgusting. And again, like we mentioned before, there's going to be solid wide receivers left at your next turn. It'll be.
Do you know what wide receivers fell to the next round after that?
No, I don't. But it's like that's like the Calvin Ridley range, like the Amari Cooper range, the Tyler Lockett range, players like that, where it's like it's not high upside like bona fide wide receiver ones, but it's definitely not like scrubs. And you can definitely get by starting 2 wide receiver 2s as your.
Because you also have to think, if you take Breece Hall, you have to go wide receiver with basically your next 2 picks, and then your top 5, 6 high upside quarterbacks are also gone.
Yeah, but that's fine. I mean,
and then your top 5 tight ends are also
I'm
gone.
okay having 3 top 12 running backs and punting quarterback and tight end. Like, I'll take those late. I'm perfect. Like, that's how I draft most of the time.
As much as I'd love to draft Breece Hall, I think right now I have to go with balancing out my team, just so by the time it gets to my pick in the what would you say that pick was? The 3rd round?
The 408.
The 408
would be the
so then by the
next
time I get to the 5th round, I can either take another wide receiver, or if like Justin Fields fell, I can take him. And then, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
if I take Breece Hall, I am handcuffed.
Yeah.
I have to take 2 wide receivers with my next 2 picks and take a later quarterback.
The question is basically like, are you going to stack up on value, or are you going to play it safe and take the flexibility for the later rounds? The thing that's so scary though is like,
if I have Eckler and Jacobs, who are 2 potential top 5 running backs, I'm fine.
Yeah, there's a potential where like the team after you at the 106 got like, I don't know, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, and now you're giving them Breece Hall at the 306, and that is also like a nasty start. Mm-hmm. All right, that is all of our smash or pass.
You said that was at the 408, but we had Eckler and Jacobs. But who else? Would we have?
The 305 is the first pick. 408 was the pick after that. Would be when the next time you pick.
Oh! I got you. Yeah.
Jeez, if Breece Hall falls to the 408 and you're passing on him, you've got issues. Like that's a
No.
round and a half of value.
No, I
you got to
you.
take that.
I would take Breece.
I think I would too, just because of like the idea of starting those 3 running backs it's too good to pass up. I'd figure it out later. I'd make trades. All right. So now we're going to react. This was supposed to be the hot takes of our hot takes and hot cakes episode. But unfortunately, again, no hot cakes. It is 9:45 p.m. and we just didn't get that far. But we're here anyway. So I went through and I screenshotted, I think I said it was 8 or 9 Twitter posts. A lot of them are from PFF. But some of them are from other just like random Twitter people that I saw that I thought it would be interesting to talk about. The first one is a PFF fantasy football start bench cut. There are 3 options: are CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, and Terry McLaurin. For some reason, I would cut Terry McLaurin out of those 3. I will tell you that much for free.
Okay.
It was CeeDee Lamb.
CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Terry McLaurin. Just tell me who you would cut first, so that way we can get that one out.
I would cut Terry McLaurin.
Because to me, this is just a debate of AJ Brown versus.
That's
CeeDee
like
Lamb.
asking, would you rather have gold, silver, or stainless steel?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Like, I mean,
that's
Terry McLaurin's good. Don't get me wrong.
And I love him as a receiver, but in fantasy, he doesn't compare.
If this was just the normal PFF page and it was like football wise, I can see why you would have this discussion. But for fantasy, nobody's considering Terry McLaurin over those 2.
Yeah.
But between CeeDee Lamb and AJ Brown, I do think it's interesting because they're like back-to-back in a lot of people's rankings. Sleeper has them back to back. I think they're both like mid-second round picks. I think I personally would probably go AJ Brown as my start.
I start AJ Brown as well.
Which is weird because that's the opposite of what I would have done at this time last year, because I was all about like safe players to set the floor of my team, and CeeDee Lamb still has upside. AJ Brown's very boomer bust a lot of the time, but like when AJ Brown hits, he hits. And I am a little scared that the Eagles offense is going to cool off this year a little bit. I mean, it's not going to be as productive as it was last year, but the Cowboys is probably going to be the same thing, losing Zeke, losing their offensive coordinator. I think CeeDee Lamb comes down a tiny bit from where he was at the end of last year. So it's really, really tough, but I would start AJ Brown, bench CeeDee Lamb, cut Terry McLaurin.
I think with CeeDee Lamb, you might get more consistency, like
For
more
sure.
like high volume targets per game, compared to Brown, who is gonna be a little bit more boomer bust, where he'll have games where like maybe Goddard and or Devontae Smith take a forefront in the scoring and and all around production. But then on the games that AJ Brown hits, he'll make up for it and win you the week. And then by the end of it, they will both rank like right next to each other. But the biggest deal breaker for me is just the fact that I like Jalen Hurts more than Dak Prescott.
Yep, that's fair.
I would start AJ Brown, bench CeeDee Lamb, and cut Terry McLaurin.
We'd have to cut McLaurin. Just like,
All in agreement.
yeah.
I put this next one on here because I thought it was a stupid post. It's also by PFF. It says, name a better running back wide receiver duo, and guess who the picture is. Who the
Running back wide receiver duo.
Yeah,
Mixon and Chase.
No, guess who the two players are in the picture. I guarantee you won't.
Mixon and Chase.
No.
Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs.
Nope. But you've already named two better running back wide receiver duos than who's on the list. It is Amari Cooper and Nick Chubb are the people that they chose to put in that graphic. Which, like, to be fair,
if you're not in Cleveland, a lot of
right,
other
exactly.
duos.
Like, to be fair, like, it's working. We're talking about it. It's getting clicks. It's got engagement. Good for you. But like, really,
Yeah.
like, there's got to be at least like 5 running back wide receiver duos that are better than that. I know for sure Dom named those 2. I would honestly, before Dalvin Cook was cut, rank Dalvin Cook and Justin
I was just
Jefferson
thinking that
higher
too,
than
but now
that.
Cook is gone.
Um,
Pollard and Lamb.
yeah, that one's close, I would say.
That one's fairly close.
I mean, maybe it's not as many as I'm thinking, but they're not they're not top 3, I'll tell you that much.
Like, it's just the fact that it's like, name a better duo, and you're like,
If you
Like,
told me to name a running back wide receiver duo just in general, not even better, I still wouldn't think of Amari Cooper and Nick Chubb first. Like, they still wouldn't even be a top 5 pick for me.
no.
All right. I just wanted to talk about that one.
That's funny.
This next one is just a question with like the 2 eyeball emojis next to each other, because that's what a lot of popular fantasy pages like to do.
Oh, the ones that's like,
yeah, exactly.
that? Yeah.
And I only picked this one because I feel like we've talked about this a lot on the show before, and I honestly wish that Aaron was here because I feel like he would have a lot to say about it and would give more insightful football knowledge than I have and than Dom has. But it says, who's the best pure rusher in the NFL? And it's a picture of Nick Chubb. I'm not saying that Nick Chubb being the picture is a hot take. I'm just like genuinely asking the question.
Who's the best pure rusher in the NFL?
Yep.
I've been saying Nick Chubb because he's averaged over 5 yards a carry his whole career. He's an absolute thumper, but then
Thumper.
Yeah, he's a thumper, dude. He's like ground and pound. Like he can take it to the house. That could have been misinterpreted. But then Derrick Henry just has like the size and
I think it's Derrick Henry.
Has more
personally.
attention drawn to him. So like even if he doesn't average more a carry, he still can run over anybody. And the games that he goes off, he absolutely goes off and can't be stopped. So I think I'd have to say Derrick Henry.
I mean,
still.
Nick Chubb, maybe he's the same way, but I feel like when you give Derrick Henry the ball in open space, it's a touchdown because then he's going up against cornerbacks and safeties. And if you give it to him in the box, even stacked with 7 defenders, he's taking it for 10 yards, like 50% of the time. So unless like his offensive line fails to block, which does happen, Like it's not going for negative yards. He just knows how to find the gaps. He's big enough and strong enough that he's driving his feet and he's picking up those extra yards. I think Nick Chubb is for sure a close second, but like it's got to be Derrick Henry for me.
Same.
All right. Next one. This one I think will have a little bit of interesting conversation. It says, which stack would you rather have for the 2023 fantasy season? Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown or Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs? We'll say 6-point passing touchdown just to make it a little bit closer.
For fantasy?
Yep, for fantasy. Which one would you rather have? A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, or Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs?
6-point passing touchdowns. I'm going Allen and Diggs.
I think I would lean Hurts and Brown.
You can't go wrong with either one.
Right,
they're right next to each other. It's so
like
close.
You're punting running back, but like these are both like realistic options. Even Kelsey and Mahomes can be thrown in there. Like that's also one that like people can get this year. Like you draft if Kelsey falls to you at the end of the second and you grab Mahomes at the beginning if Kelsey falls to you at the end of the first, in the same range as Diggs and Brown, and then you can get any three of these quarterbacks, just build the stack. But yeah, I think I would have to lean Hurts and Brown even in 6-point passing touchdown, because if Hurts does anything close to what he did last year, he doesn't even turn the ball over like hardly at all. He's really efficient. He's always running it. And A.J. Brown is just like one of those guys that can go off for 40 whenever he wants to. So
I think if I have to pick, I would pick the same thing, Hurts and Brown. I think it would just be more exciting to have them since
exactly.
they're both coming off of great years. And while the offense might cool down a little bit, you see Allen like throwing a few more picks than you would like. And like Diggs is like honestly a quiet top 5 receiver only because he's incredibly consistent and he doesn't have a whole lot of touchdowns. It's just he has a lot of targets. He's incredibly efficient. Catch rate is probably one of the highest in the league. So like it's not as exciting versus seeing A.J. Brown going off for like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns and Jalen Hurts throwing for all of them and getting some like rushing yards out of it as well.
Exactly. Yeah, actually looking, like I thought that it was going to be that I had Stephon Diggs ranked like a lot higher in my rankings than A.J. Brown, but it's 1 spot difference. And then Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen, it's the same thing. It's 1 spot difference. So it really could go either way. Dom, you said Allen and Diggs, right?
I did.
Okay,
Yeah.
Cool. Just wanted to make sure you got to talk about it.
Any reason why?
Just because, I thought about it for a little minute, and I thought, Allen and Hurts, I think Hurts is the better rushing, but I would take Diggs over A.J. Brown, and that's what really split it with me. I would go either way because obviously I like the rushing ability that Jalen Hurts has. Obviously, Josh Allen has proved he can rush the ball. I don't think he can rush like Jalen Hurts does. I just think the wide receiver difference isn't big, but I would take Diggs and his consistency over.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I think Allen and Diggs is safer on a weekly basis.
I'm scared of Josh Allen's turnovers. I'm going to be honest. Like maybe it doesn't really matter. He did fine with his turnovers last year, but like that's just if I can have a quarterback that takes care of the ball, I'll probably pick the quarterback that takes care of the ball. Mm-hmm. All right, next one. Also PFF Fantasy Football. The last one was as well. Put this one in here just for you, Brandon. Chris Olave and Michael Thomas are a top blank wide receiver duo. Chris Olave on Michael Thomas. This is a quote that he was talking about Michael Thomas in.
Fantasy wise or just all like in like football wise?
This is PFF Fantasy Football, so I would say just fantasy wise. But Chris Olave said, "We all know what we could do on the field if he's healthy." When talking about Michael Thomas, everyone in the world knows it except for Brandon. What they would do if
he hasn't been healthy for what 3-4 years. So is Michael Thomas even still relevant at this point? I don't know.
No, probably not.
Because since he broke the record with Drew Brees, which, by the way, I have argued so many times that I think Drew Brees should get and deserves more credit for breaking that record than Michael Thomas. Not saying Michael Thomas isn't or wasn't a great wide receiver at the time, but, I mean, I would say if I have to pick a spot to put them as a duo, I think I'd put them top 20. I don't know about top 15. I don't know about top 15.
All right. Well, I'll go through every team, and every time that I
wouldn't go that far.
Listen.
Okay.
Every time that I get to a team that has a better wide receiver duo, you just keep track of them so we can say it at the end.
Sure.
Eagles, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Count that as a point. Hold up one finger for me so that way we don't lose track. Kansas City Chiefs. I'm just going to go ahead and skip that one.
Yeah, okay. For Nicole Hardman and Rashee Rice or Sky Moore. Okay, no, probably not.
New England Patriots. I'll skip that one as well.
Yep.
Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson.
I will already put them as a better duo.
Green Bay Packers. Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. I'm going to be honest. I think that's close.
I think Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson could.
I think just because Olave's better and Michael Thomas has shown what he can do, I would put them higher.
I would as well.
But by the end of this year, Debo and Brandon Ayuk, you can add another one there. Amon-Ra and J-Mo is an interesting discussion.
J-Mo? Who's J-Mo?
Jameson Williams.
He already has a nickname,
Yeah,
and he's only played like one game.
That's been his nickname since college.
I've never heard that. This is the first time I've heard that.
Now you've heard it.
I think they're
J-Mo.
obviously better. I don't think
I'd consider them better.
I mean, if you want to argue Amon-Ra and Josh Reynolds, I guess that's the other one. The other wide receiver played.
Then I would put.
If you don't want to
Saints.
consider Jameson Williams because you've only seen him play 3 games and he hasn't done shit. But
Well, he has 98 speed on Madden, so I'll give it to him.
great. Chicago Bears, DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney. I'd probably give that one to DJ Moore and Darnell Mooney.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would too.
Raiders, Devontae Adams, and literally anyone else that you want to count.
Jacoby Myers.
Great.
Yes.
Bills, Gabe Davis and Diggs. Count it up.
Yes.
Broncos, Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton is an interesting one.
Oh.
I would give it to Judy and Sutton.
I think I might give it to
I
Olave.
think I give it to Olave.
Because Olave's better than both those players.
I don't think
Right
as
now
a
he
player,
is. Right now Olave's better.
I don't know about.
You just really like Jerry Jeudy.
I really like Judy.
Take your pick of any 2 Seattle Seahawks wide receivers. Go ahead and count them.
DK and Lockett, yeah.
Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones? Probably not.
No.
I'm going to skip the Texans. I don't even know who the wide receivers are for the Texans right now. Outside of Nico Collins and John Mechie, Robert Woods.
Yeah.
Giants, I'm going to skip them too. Dolphins, give them a point. Commanders, give them a point. McLaurin and Dotson, easy. Jets, Garrett Wilson and Alan Lazard.
Yes.
I don't think so. Wilson's better than Olave, but Alan Lazard hasn't done enough for me to rank him as a better wide receiver overall for fantasy.
So am I at 10 or 11?
I think we're at 10.
Okay.
Ravens, I'll skip the Ravens because it's Bateman and Odell.
Odell and Mark Andrews? Or is it only wide receivers?
Wide receivers.
Okay.
Yeah, wide receiver.
Okay.
New Orleans Saints I can skip for obvious reasons because that's the team that we're talking about. Bengals, give them a point.
We already did, I thought.
No, I'm going through in order.
Oh, 11. Okay.
Colts, I don't think that
No.
Michael Pittman is even better than Chris Olave, and there's definitely no one else on that team that's good enough. Cardinals have literally nobody now. Panthers, literally no one now. DJ Chark and Adam Thielen. Chargers, give them a point. Titans, probably not. Bucks, give them a point. Jaguars, Calvin Ridley.
And Christian Kirk.
Christian Kirk. I'd say probably. That one's close, but I'd say yeah.
Dude, before Ridley was out for a year or whatever, he was considered an elite route runner. I'll give it to Calvin.
Falcons, Drake London, and no one else, so probably not.
No.
Rams, Cooper Kupp.
And anyone else.
Who else do they even have? That's
Van
tough.
Jefferson, probably.
Great. Good enough.
I'm giving it to him.
Cowboys, I'd give it to him. CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks are good enough. And Steelers, no.
Deontay Johnson and George Pickens.
No. I don't think it. I wouldn't do it.
Fine.
So, to answer PFF's question, Chris Olave and Michael Thomas are a top 17 wide receiver duo in the NFL.
That's right in my range. I said top 20. Am I right or what?
All right. So this one is what I think is a hot take, and that's why I put it on this list. This was tweeted by Analytics of Dynasty. I can't see the exact username because it's cut off because my phone is very narrow. It says, there is a real chance Garrett Wilson has worse stats in 2023 despite an upgrade at quarterback.
I sure hope not.
Do you think that is a hot take, or do you think that is fair? Just so that way you guys know. Garrett Wilson's stats last year were 83 catches, 1,100 yards, 4 touchdowns.
I don't see it happening.
Despite an upgrade at quarterback.
I'm going to be honest.
I think that's a hot take.
I was going to say, I'm going to be honest. I thought his stats last year were better than this, so I didn't think it was a hot take at first. I was like, that just seems like a take that you're reaching for something for people to talk about. But like 83, 1,104, if you're finishing worse than that, that's a very big disappointment for Garrett Wilson, and you're going to be disappointed if you drafted him.
Everyone's considering him an easy top 12.
He had 147 targets last year and was so inefficient. Like, even if he goes to 120 next year, he still should have more than 83 catches and more than 1,100 yards.
Because he'd probably touchdowns. Because if he's getting more accurate passes, it'll probably go up to 100 catches.
Yeah, exactly.
For at least 12 to 1,300 yards. And
to end last season, he had, in the last 2 games, a combined 28 targets, 14 per game, and only caught 12. So he had a less than 50% catch rate the last 2 games of last season. Great.
Yeah, probably because a lot of the passes thrown to him were uncatchable.
I screenshotted this one because I thought it was an interesting conversation to have. I don't think that it will happen, and I don't think that anybody else even saw this tweet except for me. But it says, it's from Josh Larkey, J. Larkey Tweets. The Atlanta Falcons should get on the phone and see what San Fran wants in return for Trey Lance. Atlanta has a fringe top 10 O-line and 3 elite playmakers in Bijan, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London. Their overall roster is too good to acquire a top quarterback during the draft next year. Is that something that you think that the 49ers would benefit from, or that the Falcons would benefit from if they got Trey Lance?
I can easily see the Falcons benefiting from it. I don't know how much faith they have in Desmond Ridder. It seems to me like they have some faith in him and like they would like him to be the starter. I hear mostly because Arthur Smith worked a lot with Marcus Mariota, and Desmond Ridder reminds him a lot of Marcus Mariota, and they work together a lot. So like it makes sense, but does he have... And now Marcus Mariota is also in Atlanta to teach Desmond Ridder. So like it seems like there's kind of a plan there. But I do think they may be able to get more out of Trey Lance. But will it be worth what they would have to give up to get him? Because the 49ers gave up a lot to pick him at the 103 in the draft.
I mean, I don't think it will cost 3 first-round picks to get him. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. It's going to depend on what the Falcons would need to give up because they still have a defense to rebuild. For sure.
But it's a lot easier to rebuild a defense with a mid-first-round pick than it is to land a quarterback with a mid-first-round pick. So.
It's blanking, but I believe they just got... Did they get both of the Bengals safeties or just one of them? I want to say they got... Was it them or the Panthers that got Von Bell from the Bengals?
I think it was the Panthers.
And then one of them got Jesse Bates. I think the Falcons got Jesse Bates. Yeah. The Falcons got Jesse Bates, and they drafted a really good corner. Who's the really good corner on the Falcons? I forgot his name, but he's a top corner right now for sure. You know who he is because you use him in fantasy a lot. I think he's more of a zone corner.
Corner?
Corner, yeah, for the Falcons.
For the Falcons?
Why am I blanking right now?
I don't know.
Who am I thinking of?
Terrell. Nope.
AJ Terrell.
Yes, thank you.
AJ Terrell. Yeah.
I almost called him Terrell Pryor. Isn't that the wide receiver for the Browns that played quarterback for like 4 games like 5 years ago?
Yeah, that's an old name, I think.
Hold on, I'm sharing this note sheet with you because you guys are going to have to look at what I'm about to do.
Oh, we have to look at it?
I don't know how to share it with Dom because I don't have his phone number saved to my contacts. And I'd rather him not read it live for all of YouTube to hear. So if you could just show it to him, that would be great. Before we get to that, though, PFF Fantasy Football tweet again. Which running back would you rather have on your fantasy squad next year? Najee Harris, Ramondre Stevenson.
Which what?
Which running back would you rather have on your fantasy roster next year? Najee Harris or Ramondre Stevenson?
I technically have Ramondre ranked over Najee, so I have to say Ramondre. But I like Najee more only because I hate putting my faith in Bill Belichick and the Patriots actually giving Ramondre Stevenson a significant target share. Snap share, excuse me.
Yeah, I have Najee at 11 and Ramondre at 12, so I guess I'd have to go Najee here. But I actually originally was thinking of going Ramondre. Dom, what about you? It's a tiebreaker. Najee or Ramondre?
I would go with Stevenson just because I think he's better.
If only Aaron were here, I would have won that one. All right, so I'm going to put this graphic up on the screen for people watching to see. Apologies if you're listening on any podcast platform, but this says build your fantasy team with $15. There's a row of players worth $5, $4, $3, $2, and it doesn't say what to build with, but there should also be a row that says $1 because that would be a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 combined.
Yep.
So I'm going to say build your fantasy team with $14 because that's one player from each row. Row 1 for $5 is Lamar Jackson, Josh Jacobs, CeeDee Lamb, TJ Hawkinson. Row 2 for $4, Joe Burrow, Tony Pollard, AJ Brown, George Kittle. Row 3 is $3, Justin Herbert, Nick Chubb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Kyle Pitts. And row 4 is $2, Justin Fields, Derrick Henry, Jalen Waddle, and Dallas Goedert. I'm going to go ahead, and I think the first thing that I would do is I would grab Nick Chubb for $3 because that's a steal. That's like a borderline top 5 running back, at least in terms of upside in the second lowest tier. So I'd grab Nick Chubb for sure. I guess that we probably need one player from each position. So that locks up my running back. I would probably get AJ Brown for $4, TJ Hawkinson for $5, and Justin Fields for $2, and just go like diagonally across. But I could easily have my mind changed.
Do you have your mind made up, Dom?
Well, I did until Jason read off every single player I had in mind.
So that's what you would go with, Dom?
I would for sure go Chubb and Brown.
Fields, I like Fields at $2 a lot.
Yeah, I think that I could be convinced to take Lamar at $5 and Goddard at $2 instead, just so that way like I have a higher upside or a higher floor of a quarterback and the same upside. And the difference to me between Hawkinson and Goddard isn't that much.
Are we talking? Okay, so fantasy-wise, I'd have to look at it again. I was not thinking fantasy.
I still think you're right for fantasy. That's what I would do.
I'd have to look at it again.
Okay. I'm easily taking Joe Burrow with $4 because I think he should be in the $5 range.
Okay, that's fair.
I think he's the best quarterback there, and I'm technically taking him at a discount. I think he's a top 3 quarterback. Mm-hmm. I would love for him
over who? Mahomes, Allen, or Hurts?
I'd probably take Burrow over Hurts right now.
For fantasy?
Is this fantasy?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, dang.
I didn't think it was for fantasy.
I'm still taking Burrow. I'll still take Burrow.
I don't think that's worth it. If Fields is $2, I don't think it's worth it to double your money and take Burrow.
And I'm taking this, so if I'm taking Joe Burrow, like, okay, on my fantasy team, so he's like still on the Bengals. Yeah. I'm not like building a team.
No, exactly. Yeah, fantasy wise.
Okay, so
that's your quarterback locked up. You've got $11 left.
Okay, so then if I were to take Jacobs, that would put me at $9. So I'd have $5 left.
Mm-hmm. Hold on, you're gonna take Josh Jacobs, even though you have Nick Chubb ranked higher in your rankings, and he's cheaper.
It was just a question.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
So actually, yeah, for the price of Josh Jacobs, I'm going to take Chubb and Waddle.
Yeah. And then that gives you TJ Hawkinson by default, which is exactly where I ended up.
I don't want TJ Hawkinson. I would take CeeDee Lamb for a second wide receiver.
No, you have to have one of each position, we said.
Oh, you have to have one of each?
Yeah.
Oh, that's dumb. I don't want Hawkinson.
That's what I said.
What?
I don't
I
want
got
him
him because he was the last one left.
Like, I don't see, like, he could, but I don't see him.
I mean,
he's not an automatic, like, placement at, like, the tight end 3 this year, I think.
Yeah, you could take...
It's so hard to predict.
You could take George Kittle. I think that we both have George Kittle ranked above Hawkinson this year. And then you could use your other $1 to buy a McChicken.
I guess it doesn't matter. So, I mean, if Hawkinson's there, he costs that much, and it's like, it doesn't make a difference, and, sure. But yeah, I'll take Burrow, Chubb, and actually no. Since I have that extra $1, I might as well take Amon-Ra.
Yeah, I mean, you also could go Burrow, Chubb, CD, and then get Goddard instead of Hawkinson if you don't care about quarterback or care about tight end, because Lamb's definitely better than Waddle.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad. But Goddard is, I mean, I guess Hawkinson is in a similar spot to Goddard, but we just haven't seen Jordan Addison yet. Mm-hmm. But it seems like it's going to be a similar position to the Eagles where, like, they have their top guy and a really good tight end that could be top 5 tight end. And then, like, a solid wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. So, like, it doesn't matter which way I go. So I guess it's really more of, like, would I rather have Amon-Ra or CD? So I guess if CD's better, I'll take Burrow, Chubb, CD, and Goddard.
Okay. Apologies for those of you listening with no video.
It would have been more fun.
Made no sense to you.
It would have been more fun to be like, which would you rather have, like, to build an actual NFL team with? That's what I was prepared to talk about.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because Waddle is an absolute steal at $2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's what I was looking at.
All right. Last thing we're going to talk about, we're going to play a little bit of over-under with some underdog full season player props. So I've never actually bet on full season player props before because I don't think underdog had any posted last year. But this year they do. So this is all based on that. This was as of like 10:30 this morning, so they could have changed for sure since I've written these down, but that's just what they were when I looked. We're going to start with 3 quarterback ones, 3 running back ones, 3 wide receiver ones. The first one that I thought was interesting was Jalen Hurts rushing touchdowns is currently set at 11.5 for this upcoming season. Do you think that he goes over that, or do you think he stays under that? I think he had like 13 last year.
He did have 13, and he had 10 the year before. So it was very high with the receiving core that they have. Actually, you could argue it both ways because right now their running backs are DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny and I think Kenneth Gainwell, and they might still have Boston Scott. They don't have like a clear rusher. It's like Jalen Hurts, I think, is still the best rusher on that team. But now that I also just thought of the unstoppable QB sneak from last year, like nobody could stop that. I think I would actually take the over on that, even though that would be really high. With that in mind, I think I take the over.
I would ignore this prop just for a little betting advice for you guys because I think it's a really well set line, but I personally would take the under if I was forced at gunpoint to make a bet either way, just because the record for rushing touchdowns in a season by a quarterback is 14, and to set a betting line at 2 less than the NFL record seems a bit aggressive. But again, he finished at 13 last year while missing 2 games and had 10 the year before. And yes, like Brandon mentioned, they didn't patch the glitch of a play that the Eagles have run last year at the league meetings this year. So they're going to just keep running it again. But I think the overall efficiency of the Lions, the Eagles offense comes down this year, and they aren't going to be as effective as they were last year. Dom, what would you say?
I would take the under.
Under? That's where I'm at as well. All right, next one. Jared Goff passing touchdowns, not passing yards, is currently set at 25.5. I don't know what he finished at last year. I don't have it right up in front of me, and I don't have the means to check because I don't have my phone on me. But do you think he'll score with 26 or more, or do you think he'll score 25 or less?
For Jared Goff?
Yep.
I'll take the over.
Think over 26 touchdowns?
Yep.
I would love to see him score over 26 touchdowns.
Because
can you check to see how many he had last year?
He had 29 last year.
Yeah. I mean, with the O-line that they had last year, the running back that they got out of the first round, I know TJ Hawkinson is gone and DJ Chark is gone, but when Jameson Williams comes back, there's no reason why they shouldn't have an incredibly efficient offense. like Jared Goff has technically won shootouts before. He was on a different team. I think he's a very
won
good
shootouts last year.
Yeah, right.
Well,
so I think he's a very
lot of
good quarterback, and with the receivers that he's going to have, especially when Jameson Williams comes back, which will be after a third of the season, it could be close. But he threw 29 last year. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any reason why he can't throw 30 this year.
A lot of these lines were set at 25, 26, and I just that feels low for a lot of players. But also expecting every player to throw for 30 touchdowns is also not realistic. So it does make sense that the lines would be set there. Last quarterback line, Tua Tagovailoa. I definitely spelt it wrong on our note sheet. Please don't bully me for that. The passing yard line for him for the whole season is set at 3,800.5. So over 3,800 yards or under 3,800 yards.
So he's projected, according to Sleeper, for almost 4,200. And quarterbacks... The other quarterbacks that are projected for over that stat, for over 3,800 right now, are Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, Geno Smith, Jared Goff, Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers.
So every quarterback.
so many other quarterbacks are projected to have a lot more than that. And with probably the best wide receiving duo in the league, no clear-cut running back. It just seems like the offense is poised to be focused on passing and being pass first, and with the upside that they have, and with the speed, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, I would easily take the over.
Yeah, I wonder if this line is honestly set this low because
of Tua's health.
Because of his health, and so many people are taking the under because of him potentially getting hurt again, that they can't post it higher than this, because then every single person will be taking the under, and then that's just a losing bet for Vegas. So if you think that Tua can stay healthy this year and that he is going to get over his concussions and come in and play the whole season, this is a very easy over for me. But if you're worried about Tua's injuries and you think that he won't play the whole season, that he'll miss time, then the under also makes sense. Dom, what do you think?
Over.
Cool. That's a consensus. All right, moving on to running back. David Montgomery's rushing touchdown line, and this is the easiest bet to me. His rushing touchdown line, now that he's on the Lions, is set at 6.5. And I think that's the easiest over of any bet that Underdog has posted right now for any sport. They have the same offensive line that they did last year, and they're going to be their goal line back. Jamal Williams just scored 14 touchdowns behind this offensive line, and they're not going to change their system from what they had last year.
So you're confident it's going to be the same exact situation?
I don't care if it's the same situation at all. 7 touchdowns is disgusting. That's such a low number for a goal line running back on any team that's going to be a top 5 offense. Jahmyr Gibbs might score 6.5 rushing touchdowns next year.
Wow, okay. I was looking at this and was like, I don't want anything to do with this bet right now just because we haven't seen them yet.
That's the only one that I was like, why is it sitting that low? And I have it in my Underdog cart right now, along with apparently Patrick Mahomes already, for some reason, has a 0.5 passing yard prop special for the first game of the season, even though that's 2 months away.
Dude, that stuff is already up on Underdog right now?
Yeah, only that one for week 1. It's just a 0.5 passing yards Patrick Mahomes prop to force you to make bets right now before it goes away.
Oh, no kidding.
But yeah, full season bets are up. I think David Montgomery rushing touchdowns is an easy over. Even if he's half as efficient and plays half the season compared to what Jamal Williams did last year, he'll still score 6.5 touchdowns. They signed him for $6 million a year. They're not just going to let him rot on the bench now that they drafted a rookie. They're still going to use him. He has almost an opposite skill set to what Jahmyr Gibbs has, so they're a perfect backfield together, and he's going to be their goal line back. And last year, every Lions wide receiver had a secret agreement to go down on the 1-yard line, so if that keeps up again this year, then it's an easy 7 touchdowns for David Montgomery for sure. Dom, what do you think?
Over.
Yeah, I feel like I have to take the over because you'll hurt me if I don't.
All right, Breece Hall rushing yards is currently set at 850.5. What do you guys think about that one?
If he's healthy and easy over, and they were talking about him being healthy for training camp, let alone the season, so I think he's good to go as long as they don't sign Dalvin Cook. I'll take the over.
Agreed.
Over.
Austin Eckler receiving yards 575.5. I don't know what he had last year.
I'll tell you, because like that should be an easy bet because he was way over that the last 2 years. He had 722 last year. The year before that, 647. The year before that, 403. But I'm checking to see if he was in. Yeah, he only played 10 games that year. And then the year before that, 993.
Cool. So
as long as he's healthy, it's an easy over.
Take that over. Dom, are you on the same page?
I'll take the over.
All right, here we go. Wide receivers. T. Higgins, receiving yards. These are all receiving yards props. T. Higgins, receiving yards, 1,000.5. Will T. Higgins be a 1,000-yard receiver this year is the question.
I think that's a good one because his rookie year, he was at 908, but the last 2 years, he was just over 1,000.
And that's because of injuries mostly, so it's just a question of will T. Higgins stay healthy.
1,042 and 1,091 the year before that. And he played all 17 games last year.
Yeah,
and then the year before that, he only played 14 games and had 1,091. But I think that was without Jamar Chase.
One of those games, or two of those games that he played last year, one of them was he got injured 5 minutes in and missed it. One of the other ones was when he was healthy, quote unquote, and then he played the first snap and then sat the bench the whole time.
And if Chase gets hurt again, he takes over. So yeah. I think I take the over.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's done it the last 2 years in limited time. If he stays healthy and the Bengals offense doesn't take a major step back, he'll be a 1,000-yard receiver. But with my luck, he'll finish at 1,000 exactly, and my bet will miss. All right, next one. Justin Jefferson's line is set at 1395.5. This is the same one where, like, if you take the under, you're just betting on him getting hurt. Like, there's no way he finishes under 1,400
I just
yards.
looked, and he's gotten over that every year of his career so far.
Yeah. What was his rookie year, just out of curiosity?
14 flat.
Yeah, so, like, unless he gets hurt or unless Jordan Addison booms out as the next Randy Moss, which Justin Jefferson's already the next Randy Moss in terms of statistics. So it would be very hard to beat that. 1,400 is an easy bet for me as well. Last one that I thought was interesting, Mike Evans, Mr. Reliable for 1,000 yards every single season of his career. His line is currently set at 950.5. I heard the fantasy footballers in their mock draft episode that they posted today, not necessarily talk about this line, but talking about Mike Evans and about whether or not he'll be a 1,000-yard receiver this year. A couple of them think yes, and some of them think no. So what are your guys' thoughts?
No.
A couple and some of them? There's only 3 of them. Did they ask the other guys?
I just don't remember who said what.
Oh.
And so I don't remember if it was 2 and 1 one way or 2 and 1 the other way.
I don't think so. If anything, he'll get touchdowns.
I think he's more likely to get yards than touchdowns.
So here's what I find interesting, and I don't know where this lands among, average, whether it's above or below, but his yards per target are right around 9 as of the last 4 years, but his yards per catch have been well over 13, 14. So, like, he's been averaging, I think, 5 to 6. He's been averaging almost 5 yards after the catch. So, like, does he continue to have that this year? I don't necessarily know. I think he will still have well over 100 targets, but are they going to be catchable targets from Baker Mayfield? Like, I really just don't know how this offense is going to be with Baker because he's been bouncing around. He's proven to be a pretty good player and a pretty accurate quarterback, but he hasn't been, accurate quarterback, but he hasn't been a great all-around quarterback, period.
How many yards did he finish with last year?
11-24.
And how many games did he miss?
2. So I guess if I absolutely had to, which I don't want to make this bet, I think if I had to, I'd take the over.
It's set at 950, so I think I'd also take the over, but this is another one just like the Jalen Hurts rushing touchdowns. I'm not going near it. Like, I think the line is set very, very well, and I'm just so scared of what Baker Mayfield's going to do to this offense compared to what Tom Brady did. Tom Brady struggled last year, and he's the greatest quarterback of all time. So, like, Baker Mayfield's not going to do better than that. And Mike Evans already struggled last year, so it's only fair to think that he's going to do worse this year.
Right.
Dom, where are you at on this one?
Under.
You take the under?
What do you mean?
You said under. So you take the under on Mike Evans?
Under what?
950.5 yards.
Well,
You just said under.
What did I say first? Because I said...
You just said under.
No, I'm saying before.
I don't remember. That's why I asked. Just right now, would you take the over or the under? It doesn't matter what you said before.
Right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd probably take the under. I think
Okay.
he's going to make a downfall.
Okay.
I think it's a very well close set line. All right, that is everything that we had. I think this was a slightly longer episode. My time says 1 hour and 22 minutes, but we kind of like tested out the mics and stuff like that for a little bit before. So I'm not sure where the final cut of this will end up, but definitely longer than our last few episodes. I'm just really crossing my fingers that when I stop the recording and walk over to my phone that it recorded the entire thing and that it didn't freeze halfway through. So if you're seeing this on YouTube, then it worked.
Great.
And if you're seeing this on or listening to this on Apple Music or Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you don't know either way. So, yeah, that's all we've got for you. The plan for next week is to do an ADP draft, but we were talking beforehand and we might switch that up a little bit and try and find something else to do once Aaron is back. But for now, we will hopefully have an episode next week. We're not sure what it'll be yet, but it'll be something football related.
Yep, we'll figure it out.
All right. If you're listening on YouTube, go ahead and like, subscribe, leave us a comment. First time we've been able to say that through a year and a half.
I know
of recording.
it's weird to say it because it's kind of an eye roll to hear it on every like video. So it's almost like I don't want to do that, but obviously like all the likes, comments, and anything are like completely welcome. We would love to talk to anybody that has any sort of feedback, about the bad lighting and everything. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, anything else like that, go ahead and follow us and leave us a rating. That also helps. I think we have like 3 ratings on Apple Podcasts right now, and one of them's me and one of them's my brother. So join the club.
The third is me.
All right. Yeah. Well, I guess that's it. We will see you guys next week. Bunch of Bums signing off.